today's program is basically is to discuss more about the fellowship and the grant. So this is our second year where we'll be giving the fellowship the projects, both feature length documentary and short documentary as well. And additionally, we have one more grant this year in honor of our beloved friend who left us very early, Sriyanka. So I'll introduce you all with the lovely panel we have. First, Rajvi. Rajvi got her grant for, Rajvi got the grant for her film Mother Wit. And we have Vinita with us. And she got the fellowship last year for her film Prabha. It's a fantastic film. Welcome, Vinita. Now our moderator. So most of you have seen her in different programs, and it's basically because of Vaishali we all are here, and it's because of her post in VGDM. And that's how Bitchitra Collective started, and we are very, very happy to introduce her. It's an opportunity, Vaishali.
Thank you, Farha. Thank you so much. Actually, Farha is one of the... So we all started, like Farha said, Bitchitra Collective, and there were many people at the very beginning. In 2021, it was not to go deeply into that today, the call is about something else. But when we formed the group, Farha was one of the key members in the beginning, and she is nurturing, she's supportive, 100% shows up with energy and support. Launching into today's workshop or today's webinar, just to say quickly that this is, as Farha mentioned, announcing the Bitchitra Collective Documentary Film and Media Fellowship, the second year. We had the first year last year, and we had a very exciting batch of grantees, 7 grantees, 2 of whom, Vinita, Negi, and Rajvi Desai, are here with us. And we're really looking forward to them sharing their work. There were other wonderful grantees, and we can share the link to information about them, or you can learn about them in the website, bitchitracollective.org. In terms of our other announcement this year, it's bittersweet because one of our other founding members, Sriyanka Ray, passed away tragically this year during her travels to another country. And we can, if anyone's interested, share a little more detail about that later. But it was a shock to all of us. She was somebody we came to know through the formation of this grant. She, much like everybody else, dove in 2021, wanting to... Bitchitra Collective came together because we, during COVID-19's second wave in India, wanted to do something in terms of helping fellow filmmakers and putting stories out. And Sriyanka jumped right in. And from the get-go, she had been completely committed, nurturing. She helped raise the funds that support our programs, including this grant, the fellowship. After she passed away, the community, both in the US and her hometown in Kolkata, were really shocked and moved. One of the things we wanted to do was to remember Sriyanka for who she was, and this grant was a way to honor that. This is in partnership with Brown Girls Doc Mafia, which is an international organization that started in the United States for women of color, women and non-binary filmmakers of color. And that Sriyanka considered Brown Girls Doc Mafia her second home as well. So I think, should we, Farha, project the web page maybe and kind of go from there? It's a quick, short page just to give you a little bit of information about the grants and the eligibility. One of the things when you go to the application form, it will ask you whether you are a member of Bitchitra Collective. That's the way to qualify for this grant. So I think if you're a member, just click on the Yes tab. If you're not, within the application as well as outside of the application here, we provide a second link that takes you to our database membership form. You should totally sign up. It's a great way to also get noticed on the website. And we've had members who have been hired by filmmakers and producers who have found them on our website's database page. It's a really wonderful way for folks to find filmmakers as they're staffing up for their films. Once you are eligible and you qualify, one of the things to note is that you have until December 23rd to finish your submission form. If you have any questions along the way, you can write to us at info@bitchitracollective.org. One of the things to note about to qualify the Sriyanka grant, you need to be somebody who invokes and embodies the qualities that Sriyanka embodied. I think, what do we mean by that? We don't mean for it to be prescriptive. You don't have to exactly make the kind of films that she made, but Sriyanka was passionate about marginalized stories, local stories, stories of social justice, resistance, and joy. These were all important things for her.
In this fellowship, we'll get a $2,000 grant for both a feature length over 45 minutes and a short doc under 45. And you'll get a mentor who will help you over the year and listen to you, and which will not make your journey alone. Otherwise, the journey of documentary filmmakers are very alone. So an industry expert, who can help you, maybe with the feedback of edit, maybe with the pitching and all that. And about the Sriyanka Roy grant, it's a $4,000 grant with above 45 minutes feature or a short doc under 45 minutes. So about the eligibility, we will have jurors who will go through the application and decide that who is eligible for the fellowship, and as well as they only decide for the Sriyanka Roy grant as well. And one has to be a member, and emerging filmmaker, mid-career filmmaker, or established filmmaker, everybody is welcome to apply here. And the applicant should be the owner of the project. Owner means has to have the copyright. This is very important. The fund can only be spent on project-related expenses. It can be shooting, it can be pre-production, it can be writing, or it can even be a website for your project. So something related to your project. And who we do not fund is student projects. We don't fund. And commercial or promotional films, those are not eligible. And if you are not a member of Bitchitra Collective, again, that's a no. And institutions or organizations, if they are making a film, let's say one NGO is making a film, and we won't be able to be a part of that. And applicant has to be the director of the project. That's a must.
Okay, so I think without further ado, let's just hand it over to our grantees. Rajvi, are you feeling up for going first? Yeah? Okay, great. So you guys, we're all very privileged to have two fabulous filmmakers share their hard work, because the proposal, please pay attention to how they describe putting this together. It's not only an opportunity for you to impress upon our jurors your work, your vision in cinematic language, and what your film will look like. It's also an opportunity for you to put materials together that can work for you for further applications to other international grants. Both Vinita and Rajvi have been very successful in raising support and attention for their films at pitches and grants. Rajvi, over to you.
Cool. Hi. So I am Rajvi. I use any pronouns. Very happy to be here. And so my project is Mother Wit. I'm making it in partnership with my co-director. Their name is Tashima Brennan. And it is about a Black trans family's unique pursuit of education as one pathway toward liberation. So I have some screenshots from the proposal so that, we could read some stuff together. So it is 3 Black trans women grieve the death of their matriarch and mentor, who had fought all her life to set them on a path of education, excellence, and liberation, as they fight to fulfill the promises they made to her. So when I say actionable and active, like it's just like, I mean, this is something that we were told all the time, that like use verbs, like, you know, they're grieving, they're fighting, like what are they actually doing in the film? Instead of like talking about the concept of a film or the themes or subject of a film, to actually be like, okay, what are your characters doing? And this is only because our film is an observational verite film that follows them in real time. The reason for this. Yeah. So the next is the topic summary. I love the Bitchitra app, I think, because the topic summary comes before the story summary, right? And usually it's the reverse in the core app, and I don't like that because our participants, they belong to a community that is like severely marginalized and threatened in America, right? So most people we talk to, they don't know anything about this community, the nuances, the realities, or at all. So we realize that we can't take for granted at all that people will know anything about our participants. And so for our topic summary, we start from scratch. Like the life expectancy of Black trans women is 30 to 33 to 35, according to the community. Why is that? Because murder, socioeconomic factors like drug use, dangerous survival sex work, hostile healthcare system, they all lead to disproportionate amount of deaths. Okay, so what then? Education is seen as a path in the community for long life and liberation. Why? Because many Black trans women drop out when they're young because of discrimination in educational institutions. So they are kept out of the formal workforce, and then so on and so forth. So the person reading the app would need to understand all of this context to be able to really feel the impact of our actual story. So for the story summary, before I read parts of it, I just really wanted to say how long it took for us to get here, because I feel like when you start with a theme or a subject, you tend to keep explaining that, thinking it's the story. But ours, as I said, is an observational verite film, so it was really important to drill down like what the audience is actually going to see. So where do our participants begin their role in the film? Where do they end up? What are the things that happen in the middle that push them to that end point? What are the narrative arcs? What are the story beats? What's actually going to happen? Like all of these are just like different ways of saying the same thing, but I realized I had to ask myself this over and over and over again to really be like, okay, this is what's happening in the film. And if you're in production like us and haven't yet shot the end of your film, then also we would tell funders what we think is going to happen and what we're ready for, and then throw in a little something about like being flexible. So I would say that it's okay and even encouraged to say what you don't know and what remains uncertain about your film, but just be confident when you say it. So I think funders just want to know if that you have a handle on it and that also you have the foresight to make it work. So I'm going to read the graphs for okay. What does a soul have to do these days to be saved? Heartaches washed away by the hands that heal the pain. What does a soul have to do these days to be saved? A soldier to stand in my place. If I can't fight today, I just want to be saved. Mother Wit delivers a self-written poem at a sparsely attended Trans Day of Visibility event in Brooklyn, New York. On stage at the Marsha P. Johnson Park, Mother Wit implores New Yorkers to care that Black trans women are being murdered at record numbers, to fight for women like her. At 39, Mother Wit has beaten the life expectancy imposed upon Black trans women, which LGBTQIA+ organizations estimate to be 33 to 35. Survival of her community has always been on Mother Wit's mind. On that stage, however, wearing her plush blue coat and yellow scrunchie, sitting in her motor scooter because she cannot walk, it's her own survival that she questions. So that's the first paragraph of the proposal as it stands now. Well, I chose this one, and then there's another one too. If we have time to read, Vaishali, I just wanted to do a time check with you. Okay. I am personally a visual reader, so I like to imagine in my head whenever I'm reading something, like what it would be like to watch. And I've heard from funders that they appreciate being painted a picture as well. So that's a reason to describe some scenes in the story summary. Farha, could you share the second screenshot? Okay. So this is about 3 paragraphs into the proposal. And Yeah. So Mother Wit begins with a typical Wednesday meeting at the Ghost Project. Well, you would know earlier that it's her nonprofit. Mother Latravius arrives in a wheelchair accessible van where she is slowly lowered onto the ground in her motor scooter. She rides out back to the ramp into the Brooklyn Pride Center in Crown Heights, cursing her scooter that's been on the fritz as she struggles on the incline. Once inside, she settles into her designated chair at the front of the room, calling for everyone to be quiet and give her their attention. The room falls silent immediately, used to the routine. This particular Wednesday, she's urging people to get out of survival sex work. I'm not judging nobody. If you work in sex work, girl, more power to you. Be careful out there in the streets. She says, you don't want to be the girl standing out there watching every car pass you. To the young girl, we have to prepare as individuals for the future. With the life expectancy being so low, Mother Latravius has seen many perish in the face of social inequalities that lead to drug addiction, dangerous sex work, and long-term physical and mental health issues. She knows her people aren't thinking long-term because society hasn't given them the luxury to do so. Even though her nonprofit works to ensure her Black and brown children's survival, her ultimate goal is to see them thrive, to go beyond relying on her and her nonprofit to rely on themselves. So yeah, that's like some parts of the story summary. This is still the beginning. I mean, it's very long, and I'm happy to personally share the document with any of you who might like it. So this is like how we chose to set up our main protagonist, and also very crucially what she wanted, which was like the catalyst for us to move through the story, because it's like, okay, there's this lady, she wants this thing. Is she gonna get it or not? And then slowly introduce the other characters, where they are when they first meet her, and by the end where we hope they are gonna be. So yeah, I think that's all for story summary. And then we can move on to artistic approach. We'll see if we have time to read this, but I think one main thing that we learned in our process of applying to and getting feedback and stuff like that is that artistic approach obviously is like, cinematography, editing, if you have animation, if you have archival, like all of this elements and how you're going to use it. And then obviously spend some time describing the style, or even movies that have that same style, and paint a picture. But the one feedback that was very crucial, I think, was that it's equally important in the approach to say how you're going to tell the story, not just in terms of like the technical elements that you're using, but also like your skeletal framework or like thinking behind it. Like, it was very important for us to be like, okay, we start with Mother Latravius and her point of view, but at some point we flip that lens to her daughters. And Mother Wit is this idea of ancient wisdom passed down in Black communities. So how is Mother Wit going to show up in the film? And the ways in which we're doing that is, one, we're using archival. Second, we're using this thing called an altar that's very important in Black trans communities, where people kind of sit and on a regular basis remember their ancestors. So it's like that visual of the altar is punctuating the film, and kind of helping us move through the past and present. Mother Latravius wrote poetry, so that's one story element we're using to kind of move us into transitions in and out of scenes, in and out of the past present. So yeah, I think those things were really important that we weren't thinking about before. So yeah, because it's just really hard to know how you're going to tell the story before you start telling the story, but I think the more that you drill down, I feel like has really helped us, gain some of the grants, including Bitchitra's that we got, and also just for own clarities. Yeah. So I don't know. Okay, what is the time?
Great, thank you. So you have some more parts of the section, Rajvi, that you want to share?
I mean, I just had the artistic approach, and then I mean, I feel like the connection and access bit is just really it would just be individual and personal. So I don't know if we need to share that. Yeah.
You could. Yeah, I think you could, like, keeping Sriyanka Ray Grant in mind, you could just explain in the connection and access section, like, how did you arrive upon I think use every section differently. So utilize every section to say something you weren't able to say in the previous other sections, right? And this might be a chance for you to, like, say how you arrived upon the topic or the subject or theme. This, you could keep it personal. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I think in connection and access, we have different versions, but we talk about this. That's actually one place that we get to talk about ourselves a little bit and establish ourselves as the authority, or one kind of authority on this film. And so we usually say, that both of us are non-binary, black and brown, and a little bit about our own personal life experiences that have led us to understand our participants better. For example, I come from a single parent household, and my mom, like, used education specifically to escape a cycle of poverty and abuse. And so living in a household like that really helps me understand, like, what our participants are going through. Like, my co-director Tashima, like, they came into this world through drug addiction and sex work, and they have sat in black trans communities for years. So all of this, I think, really helps the funder be like, okay, these people know what they're doing. Like, we can at least trust them to know that they're telling a story that's worth watching. And then I think we really talk about our relationship with our participants. Maybe there's an anecdote there, if there's like word limit space. We tell them that they have invited us into their homes, and that took time to build that trust, so the funder knows that we've earned that, and that it didn't come easy. Or that when Mother Wit passed, like, the community invited us into their homes to be a part of their legacy, her legacy, to sustain her legacy, preserve her legacy. So I think these little things, they indicate that we are trusted, and that this film's not just going to, like, suddenly fall apart. Like, we have established the foundation to continue and finish this project. So I think that's the
Great.
connection system.
Yeah, I think that's really moving, and you're 100% correct in that. So one other thing is that as an emerging filmmaker, one of the sections that says list key members is another important section, right? Would you like to Rajvi, do you think you want to talk about this now, or we can come back to it as well? But this could go along with your personal section, so how you came upon the story. And if you are a first-time filmmaker, not with a lot of body of work yet to show, but you want to sort of like, and you're still developing your work, how else do you kind of utilize these questions to impress upon the jurors why they should trust you with the story?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so yeah, it has been a challenge, especially as a first-time feature maker for funders. It's like, okay, they love the film, but then they would like, I mean, thanks Bitchitra, but like, they would still not fund it, because it's like, oh, there's just so many questions about, like, feasibility and, like, responsibility and demonstrated, demonstrated I don't know how to say it, but I'll move. And so, yeah, like, it was really important. It was helpful that it was the two of us. Because I think it's just one person just cannot make a documentary. It's just not possible. So I think you really need a team. But I think, obviously, you want money to pay people, so it's like a vicious cycle. If you don't have money, then you don't have a team. But I think one thing is that it was really important for us to get some advisors on board, like some mentor type people, who are established in the industry, and I mean, with Bichitra's fellowship, like, now I put Sunita Prasad, who's my mentor for this grant, like, on, and, like, like, Sunita has edited, like, some brilliant documentaries. Like, she's a great storyteller, and she has goodwill in the industry. So it's like, okay, advisor Sunita Prasad, that already does something.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And to Rajvi's point, it is 100% true that, you don't, their work and their experience and what they brought to the project was enough. So it's not like always you need to have a big team and somebody to endorse your project. That's not important. But having said that, if you have people you have spoken to but are not officially team members, you could also get their permission and maybe list and say that here's somebody in an ideal situation, if I had the funds, I would love to work with, and they have told me that they'd love to be on the project. Maybe they're busy right now, but they will step in, or they're advising us, etc., etc. Okay. Shall we move on to Vinita? Thanks so much, Rajvi. That was really incredible and very clear and took us through the segments. So I'm going to bounce this off really quickly to our other panelist, Vinita, Negi. Over to you.
Also, one thing I wanted to know from both of you, Vivek and for now you can answer. When you are making a trailer, आप क्या क्या चीजें ध्यान में रख रहे हो जब आप submit कर रहे हो ये proposal? ट्रेलर करते वक्त स्पेशल.
You're asking me.
Yes.
So I always have a very hard time with trailers because I tend to not tease. I have to tell that I have to be a little more secure, otherwise I would be insecure in terms of that I've got everything covered. But I don't know whether I've got everything covered. So I'm trying to at least, I think in this project, what is different is, or what would be different is, there's a single protagonist. She does not have an immediate family. So there's not a lot which is coming through her relationships vis-a-vis her family, right? It's also not about a theme or a social issue. And it's something where there's a goal. So she's going towards it. And because of where she's placed in society and how she is, there are challenges. And in the pursuit of that goal and while handling those challenges, you probably get to the core of the story, where it is about the woman who, went against the grain of the society and had a certain life because of the way it is structured. And at the end of it, there is this existential catharsis. So for me, I wanted to pretty much talk about different obstacles she has. The fact that this is a goal she wants to go for. The fact that this car is almost like another character, and why it is another character is because of the life she chose. And it is sort of a metaphor for her. So I wanted to have that tangent, have those obstacles, have these other characters which are hopefully sort of metaphors or stand-ins for something which probably her story stands for. So yeah, for me, it was to really show a very well-rounded glimpse of the world that it is going to be in. A lot of people would probably tease and show a little more about the formal aspect and all of that, but whatever I try, I end up going with that.
It's wonderful.
I'll start with the log line. Prabha, 86, wants to nurse her soul companion back to life. Her vintage car, Austin 7, 1934, and go for one last car rally. She often says, when you live alone, objects become family. Looking at the end of life and chasing an impossible dream, Prabha is forced to contemplate her choices and come to terms with the past that is slowly fading away. It's self-explanatory, I hope. But yeah, it starts off with the goal that this woman has, the fact that this car is a secondary character, the fact that she has a history like this with her, and hopefully a hint that she's alone and this is like a family to her. I'm attempting to at least paint a picture in terms of this car, this world that Prabha inhabits, this dream she has. What does that dream really mean? And in the pursuit of this dream, the kind of challenges she has, when we see her tackle those challenges, there is also this another layer of storytelling that is that we're attempting, where it is about this woman at the end of life, and there are choices that she made. There are things that she did that she's proud of, but then it's also this time slipping away, and so the sense of looking back at time and doing that one last adventure. So that's how I tried to frame it. Next, we're looking at synopsis. Prabha is a single woman living alone in a family in the family-centric patriarchal Indian society. Her car is her prized possession. During her youth, they traveled thousands of kilometers across the country. At 86, Prabha spends hours managing traffic at busy junctions. She has made a little world for herself, a world of vintage car enthusiasts and rally participants. A blunder made by a mechanic broke down her car, turning her life into a quest to fix it back and go for the last journey together. Fellow vintage car owners and rich elite men approach her to buy her car, but for Prabha, it is winner of her youth. She often says, when you live alone, objects become family. Prabha is offered a solution in the form of turning the car electric, but she rejects the idea of Austin losing its sanctity, almost as a refusal to be slowed down by age and turned redundant. As we see her go from mechanic to mechanic, we understand that her journey is a meditation on a woman's continued struggle to make a place for herself and her coming to terms with her loneliness and mortality. It helps us appreciate the desire to be seen and accepted even among those who forge a different path while making difficult choices. She will try to sue the old mechanic, collect rare parts, and maneuver in a still male-dominated automobile world, making a place for herself. Their unique relationship will tell the story of a woman's eternal love for life, her refusal to lose agency over it, and her resolve to give it purpose even during its twilight. I mean, for me, one of the biggest pull was this amazing old woman and her ajantric-like old car. Very odd, even in the society that we live in terms of it's not very common to see women drive, let alone old women drive. Uh, so just this world that she inhabits, where people that she's rubbing shoulders with are all rich men. And then she's trying to sort of stand up for herself or trying to do her own thing, is to me pretty much like how she lived her life and kind of became a trailblazer. So while the film is sort of focusing on her goal, which sounds very car oriented, but the gaze, the hope is to have the gaze more on the interpersonal dynamics and the metaphor that hopefully her story stands for. And in this journey, I've been also kind of very lucky because there are a lot of antagonists and interesting characters, and loads of things keep happening. And as we move forward in time, we go deeper into Prabha's internal quest, and from being a very eccentric, bold, amazingly humorous Ajji, she opens up and becomes more vulnerable over time. And hopefully that's the path, the emotional journey that we are charting along with the journey of this quest.
Your synopsis actually does a great job of like introducing the character, the stakes, like what is going to happen to this character that we feel we want to be on a journey and feel really invested in. And we learn through her eyes about her challenges and her struggle, which ultimately reflect on, you know, something very like relatable for all of us. But one of the things we've seen in applications as I would say as a mistake sometimes is that people tend to go deeper into like talking about the background of the story and the topic and explanation of like the subject, but less about like the details of how the story will play out on screen. Like, what is the story we're going to watch? Not necessarily other information about like, you know, topic. And that's why we let you have the topic summary, get that out of the way. And this is your chance to really tell us how will the film play out, not what this, you know, subject is about. So I think you've done a wonderful job. So thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. I used to do that a lot actually in the beginning, like my very first proposals, because for me, pitching and writing this came much later. I just started making the film. And while I was doing that, it's also because Prabha is old. So she has lived through so many decades and so many things have happened, and they are kind of, you feel that they're very instrumental in the story, and that is true, they're instrumental in the story. But you can't just keep talking about the background. So I was doing that a lot, and then like, you know, sorry, when I got feedback, I was told that, is it a story about her history? Or is it, you know, or are you going to tell us what we see in the film? So, so yeah, I tried to not go back so much into the past, but focus more on what's going to happen in the film. Okay, next we move to concept summary. An 89-year-old vintage car is stored on a flatbed truck. In it, 86-year-old Prabha gliding through a sea of modern cars. Curious passers-by look on and take pictures. Prabha is beaming with pride over her prized possession and their shared history. She is hopeful that her beloved car will be restored soon, and she will embark on the last journey to commemorate their lifelong association. Prabha is a single old woman living alone in the family-centric patriarchal Indian society. Her vintage car, Austin 7, is her prized possession. In her youth, they traveled thousands of kilometers across the country to participate in car rallies and conferences. Today, at 86, Prabha spends hours managing traffic at busy city junctions in Pune, a bustling Indian metropolis. Here, she is a local celebrity, an inspirational figure, and a trailblazer from the bygone times. We see the little world that she has created for herself as she navigates a world of vintage car enthusiasts where she's still the only female member of her car club. Prabha enjoys moving around in these circles and telling her stories, which has a repetitive anecdotal script-like quality to it. In the film, our intimate camera observes Prabha as she navigates between the outer world and her inner world. Prabha lives alone in what is a museum of taped, labeled, and archived memories. Her inner world is quiet, alone, and filled with quotidian activities of logging her days dedicatedly and tending to her hostel. Just one thing, I have repeated a few things from the synopsis, so you should not do that. And I can see it by reading now. I'm not very prolific with proposal writing, so sorry, this is not a great example.
No, this is great. This is great to even hear you catch yourself as you're, but I think the thumbs up all around.
Whenever you start off with a scene that you probably shot or something that you expect to shoot or something which is like a recurring visual motive, and it is something which somehow captures the spirit of your character or the spirit of your story or something which is quite central and incidental to probably the larger thing that you're trying to say. It doesn't have to be the most iconic, climactic scene, but a visual image which sort of paints some sort of picture. It's a nice entry into sort of getting a glance of how the story is going to unfold. An 86-year-old woman controlling traffic, being an active volunteer, going and rubbing shoulders with these middle-aged rich men, trying to get her car parts and all that. It's as amazing as she is. There's a lot of chaos and energy and sound and like an influx of too much around her. But when you see her at home, that's when you're the closest to her because it's quiet. Being alone at that age, especially in our society, because it's also kind of stigmatized.
Thanks, Vinita. It's like going through, as you're writing the story, also like all the questions you have in your mind. And I think at this point, it's like you haven't edited your film, so you can't always, the applicant doesn't know how it's going to shape together, but you can do the best you can in just conveying, a story, a forward motion story with and explaining the world of your character, exactly as you mentioned. And then also to note, every application has a word count. Ours has a certain word count. So I think, pay attention to those as you start drafting it. Sorry, so the next segment.
Yeah. So next one is artistic approach. Okay. Prabha lives in a tiny, crammed up flat, museum of objects hoarded over decades with engine parts sprawled across it like furniture units. Cups and trophies line up the ceiling in this fortress of solitude. Shot in a mostly observational style, the narrative backbone of the film is Prabha's present life and her many efforts toward restoring her Austin car. Her past and history with this faithful companion will be presented through old pictures, video archives, interviews, and rally footage, which highlight the emotional significance of her quest. Visually show Prabha across ages, changes in Indian society, and how the autofill world still remains a mainly male-dominated arena. These archives will bring to life Prabha's unique past, her glory days, and the time that she daily holds on to. Prabha's conversations with her female friends give perspective on the status of women in India across decades. These conversations will punctuate the narrative time and again to highlight Prabha's emotional state and her bond with her female friends as they partake in personal exchanges and share some moments of levity. These sequences will also show the contrast between her car club meetings, where she is an odd figure, an outlier amongst the ultra-rich men, vintage car connoisseurs for whom their cars are prestigious collectibles, vis-a-vis Prabha's deep emotional bond with hers. Prabha's quotidian life will show a glimpse of the family-centric world around her, where older people have restricted social roles and live more sedentary and passive lives, dependent on their families. Television bearing out teleserials about ideal daughters and mothers adds to the humorous contrast to Prabha's independent spirit. A colorful, eccentric world of car rallies and enthusiasts forms the backdrop of the film. The Austin car is visualized as a physical extension of Prabha. We will see these unlikely companions across seasons and different garages. withering away and waiting. Austin being taken from one garage to another is a recurring visual motif. The commotion of traffic, crowds, busy city life, and chill sounds of the car workshop, in contrast with the relative quiet of Prabha's house, will add to the opposing rhythms of the two worlds that she inhabits. Prabha grapples with modern technology as she insistently logs and archives her days. We see her alienation from the modern world and her need to construct an infallible structure around herself. Okay, I might have like edited something and that might not be making grammatical sense. The narrative is annotated with lyrical, poetic visuals of the changing city landscape with a voiceover by Prabha, which gives a glimpse into her inner life and her thoughts about trying to catch up with the modern world. So this is in continuation with what I was talking about. When I met Prabha, the very first thing which struck me was, so there's an old TV, there are all these trophies that she so dearly loves. And then there's a big crankcase bang in the middle of the living room. So it's almost like she used to sit watching TV with her feet up on the parts. So the house sort of becomes a very interesting space because as we've seen a lot of old people, she loves to vote and it's very characteristic. So one of the things which I've not written right now is in her space, a lot of shots are just lingering on the space because they bring out a character a lot more. And of course, this because she's somebody with this kind of history, because she's somebody whose past life has a lot of context to what we see playing out right now. So her archive and her personal history is quite important for us to shuttle between and see the significance of this present quest that she has because of the relationship that she shares with her car.
Since we became familiar with your project, what has been the journey for you? And can you just quickly tell us like some of the exciting pitches you won and like what has been the response?
Oh, it's been very good. It's a long journey though. But I was a part of 3 pitches. One is Edinburgh pitch by Scottish Documentary Institute. And the most amazing thing is that we were the only ones who pitched online because we couldn't afford to fly down. But we won the audience award and the response was phenomenal. And we got some interest from the Scottish co-producers through that forum and a few broadcasters and a few more leads. Then we won another audience award at DMZ Docs, which happened like just a month back. Few broadcasters are interested, so it's definitely it has gained momentum, and yeah.
It's been a really exciting journey to watch. We have Facebook social media friends, and now we are friends since this application since last year, and I've just like really loved following your journey. And then Rajvi and I also work together on a project, so it's just like it just feels like one big family now. But I'm just so inspired by both of y'all and your how you're moving and pushing your work forward, because that is a big deal, to constantly stay committed and on top of it and to move it forward. Okay. Thank you both. Farha, should we open this up to questions? What do you think?
Yeah.
I'd like to know if hybrid films are allowed. And my film has a script. I call it a documentary, but anyway, my film has a script, but it's going to be performed by quote unquote, like by actual people living those lives. It will have the look of a documentary, but the film is mostly already on paper right now. So does this qualify?
Yes, hybrid films absolutely qualify. And I think we have seen many examples of that, like All That Breathes is a hybrid film.
Yeah.
Right? So I think like there's such exciting like things being done with the form. If there is a form, like, we are always like, we want to be surprised. So I think definitely
Right.
it. And then you can use these like proposal spaces to explain your vision for the film and what are the documentary elements that can be clarified for the jurors in a way.
Right.
Yeah, you should
That
absolutely.
answers my question. Thanks.
আমি কোথায় দেখতে পাচ্ছি না তো জাস্ট আ মিনিট
You can
তোমাকে আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি। You should.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, hi. No, I just wanted to know that can I submit clips? No, I'm in my cart more than 10 minutes. Can I do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can submit more than 10 minutes. Maybe if possible, keep it, tell us what is the segment that we should be watching and the time code.
I have a follow-up question to that. Should it be one piece up to 10 minutes, or can it be a reel of multiple pieces?
So that we have two spaces. One is for previous sample and then current sample. So the previous sample is compulsory. You must share something that you've done in the past, and the current sample is optional, but you, frankly, a little more competitive if you can show us the work that, if you've shot a little bit, and if you can, no matter how rough, if it can be strung together in a way that helps us understand the parts of the story and or an introduction to your characters. So I think that would be really helpful. There are people who are early in development. If you don't have a sample, it's totally okay. It's optional. In that case, please, use the written spaces to explain to us as best as you can about your concept and your shoots that you're planning in order to achieve your scenes. So there is a question that says from Shruti Parthasarthi, and it asks, can we apply with a project that is already funded as a short documentary with the idea that one hopes to make a longer film with the same project? Also, can we submit more than one project? 100% submit as many projects as you want. There's no definitely no restrictions. And then I think in parentheses, the question is with the idea that one hopes to make a longer film with the same project. I see. You can definitely do that. I would suggest in that case, submit your shorter idea as previous work sample, and don't submit anything for current work sample if you don't have it. And then submit an explanation in the video, sort of in the box where you submit the link. Submit an explanation or add somewhere in the attachment an explanation of your video sample and what you're trying to convey with that, so that the jurors are absolutely clear that the video sample is a proof of concept and it's not really indicative of your new project, but it serves as research and example of what you hope to do. Rajvi, would you like to talk about how you went from a short to long?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why I was silent, because I think you said exactly what happened with us. So yeah, basically the 5-minute film that's been on the festival circuit called Hold On To Me is also about Mother Literavius, who you just watched, and it's based on a poem that she wrote, and it's a 5-minute kind of little portraiture type thing, and says a little bit about her core vision, which is that my children need to have ambitions and they need to figure out what that is, and I'm going to help them. And so we say it very much like this. This is a 5-minute, just a teaser of her actual motivation or want or main purpose in life, and it's based on a poem of hers, which I feel like gives it a little bit of a container. And then when we talk about Mother Wit, we're like, oh, it's about 3 of her daughters and how they're interpreting her vision, and it's like a 2-year multi-character verite 2-3 or X infinity years project. And so I think we just kind of use words that make the short feels like short, and then the long as if like an expansive version. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I mean, that Rajvi is a great example of that, and very successfully so, sort of extending the project along. There's a question from Sakshi Gulati, and it says, hi, our older sample needs to be non-fiction or fiction will do? Will do. You can submit your fiction and whatever your previous work is, as long as it kind of introduces the idea of you as an artist and approach to your art. I think that will do. But we would like to see you in a key role in that sample.
If you're incurring expenses for the like stage that you're applying for before the grants are approved, is it possible to like use grants towards expenses that have already been incurred, or it has to be incurred afterwards? Does that make sense?
Can you reimburse yourself, right? So I think it's a good question, as long as it's spent towards the project. And if that's reimbursement for yourself towards the project, that's okay. We also want to encourage a system where the filmmakers understand that, your time is valuable. You should pay yourself. Definitely, even as you make a budget, make a realistic budget and submit to us. This is your chance to think about, in an ideal world, what do you think you should be paid for the time you have put in? You may or may never raise that budget, but don't be afraid to put that together, and certainly note what you have invested from your own funds.
There is one more question that we got from other members. Can existing Bitchitra fellows apply for Sriyanka Ray grant? We got it from multiple people. So can you please address that?
Yes, I think you can. Ideally, if you, but not for the same project, unfortunately. I think at this point, we're trying to spread the love. Right now, I think applying with the same project might be a bit of a conflict, but you can apply with a different project. That would work.
How much of emphasis is there on the visual material? Because I do have something in development and paid access because it's my community, my family. But I don't have a lot of material. So how do you go about applying?
It's totally fine. Like if you're in super early development, we understand you may or may not have. You could think about a lookbook, pitch deck with photographs and anything, in terms of visual treatment, if that's a way to go, or just use the text box sections to explain to the best of your ability. Like, what are the scenes that you foresee in the film? What is the cinematic way the story will move forward? Less background in the story synopsis section and more of story in it. There's a Sriyanka Ray fund. Mopia has said rightly that it's really sad to hear about, like a Sriyanka Ray fund feels weird. Maybe since there are some questions around what is this fund, should we talk a little bit about Sriyanka as a wrap up? I think we wanted to, right, Farha?
Yeah. Sriyanka was a great organizer. She used to initiate a lot of things, and she used to do everything as a chutki baja ke. And let's say there was in 1 month we had 2 meetups. One was online and one was physical meetup. And in between, we had a grant program, different work going on. And we all were busy with that as well. And she was so enthusiastic about, being in all these 3 events together, and she put it off really nicely. And she was that kind of member, whenever you have some doubt, you go to Sriyanka and Sriyanka, ye kaise karna hai, batao. And she will always have an answer. Such a lively, positive person. And we had a meetup with Sriyanka in Kolkata, and she was so enthusiastic about hearing everybody's project. And she asked every little tiny details, and she was like, ye bhi dekhna hai, I'm waiting for this to get finished and all. So she is that kind of champion who, if you have her around, half of your things will be done. So yeah, we really miss her a lot.
I think just to add to that, she was working on a film which was unfinished, but it was based in the Sundarbans, and it was a environmental climate crisis film. Am I correct about that? I don't have all the details, but she's from Kolkata and from West Bengal. And so this is an example, sort of like us, you know, this was who she was, you know, she was really interested in like stories, grassroots stories. Just to quickly read a little bit about her. Sriyanka Ray was a Brooklyn and Kolkata-based journalist, video journalist, storyteller, and producer of social issue content. Her films have broadcast on US public television and earned her 8 New York Emmy nominations. In 2018, Sriyanka and her team won a New York Emmy Award for their town hall on school segregation in New York City. Here's how she described herself. She covers race, inequality, youth issues, and the criminal justice system. Much of her work has been at the intersection of journalism, film, and social change. She got her master's in media studies from the New School, University, New York, and her bachelor's in English literature from the prestigious Presidency College in Kolkata, India. In her own words, Sriyanka was interested in stories of justice, resistance, and joy. And I love that. So I think with that note, should we wrap this up?
Should we all take a picture together? Who is going to say cheese? 1, 2, 3.
আর আমাকে দেখা যাচ্ছে?
একদম
দারুণ দেখা যাচ্ছে।
Okay, 1, 2, 3 and go.